Thank you, the Program Director. The Acting Chief of the South African National Defence, represented by Lieutenant General Masondo, the Military Ombud, Lieutenant General T.T. Matanzima, the African Union Commission representative and Chief of Staff of African Standby Force, Major General Trust Mugoba, all panel members present, the Deputy Military Ombud, Advocate Damani, and staff from the Office of the Military Ombud, the military attaches, the Military Command Council, academics, NGOs, leaders, and policy strategists, the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm representing the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. She is not well, and I'm not going to move away from her speech that she prepared for this occasion. This symposium occurs a day before we mark 25 years of our democracy and 7 years since the establishment of the institution of the Military Ombud. As we host this symposium, we must also take the opportunity to honor and bid farewell to the country's first military ombud, Lieutenant General Retired T.T. Matanzima. He leaves the institution in good hands, having overseen its establishment from the time he was appointed 7 years ago. He has no predecessor but had to start the institution from scratch, including ensuring it has the full capacity to implement its mandate as enshrined in the legislation, in particular the Military Ombud Act. To that effect, the Deputy Military Ombud, Advocate S.T.B. Damani, was appointed in December 2018 when the position became vacant with the passing of the previous Deputy Military Ombud, Advocate Marivat. It is fitting that this symposium on the role of oversight over the armed forces in the contemporary African context happens at a time when there are serious challenges to civil-military relations in African context. This against the background of the seeming contagion of the coup, as well as armed conflicts plaguing our continent. But typical what is oversight over the armed forces. This cannot be answered without unpacking what civil-military relations is, of which a lot has been written over the centuries. Philosophers and political scientists since the time of Plato have sought to answer the question, who will guard the guardians? This has become the central question of civil-military relations, out of which oversight over the armed forces springs from. It was this question in mind that South Africa's first parliament promulgated the White Paper on Defense in 1996, 2 years after the birth of our democracy and groundbreaking defense policy. Defense in democracy. Central to this 1996 White Paper is a dedicated chapter to civil-military relations, which stated that, and I quote, The Department of Defense supports the creation of the post of military ombudsperson, whose main duties are to monitor adherence to democratic civil-military relations, undertake investigations at the request of Parliament, and investigate complaints against the South African National Defence Force by military personnel and members of the public. The ombudsperson would be an independent official who is appointed by and reports to Parliament. The powers and functions of the ombudsperson would be spelled out in legislation, close quotes. We now have that legislation in the form of the Military Ombuds Act 4 of 2012, and that office is now established with the motto, a world-leading independent and impartial military ombud institution. Why must there be oversight over the military amongst many other institutions of the state? Briefly, this is because the military is generally a state within a state. There's nothing one cannot find within the military establishment, anywhere and in many parts of the world. The military, as the guardian of the state, also needs to be guarded. It becomes who guards the guards. Hence, the establishment of institutions of oversight such as the military ombuds. The symposium today comes on the heels of last year's Africa Day Symposium, which explored mechanisms of introducing the concept of military oversight of the armed forces in Africa. Some of its recommendations and way forward, to mention but a few, included state formation underpinned by democracy, good governance, and the rule of law, the changing environment of armed conflict, the African Charter of Human Rights, lastly, the African Union 2063 aspirations, of which 3 were lifted. These are Aspiration 3 on an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect of human rights, justice, and the rule of law. Aspiration 4 on a peaceful and secure Africa. And Aspiration 7 on Africa as a strong, united, and influential global player. Effective oversight, which was also one of the key recommendations, is especially in the area of legislative mandates, accountability, good governance, and human rights. 7 years down the line, what is the measure of effectiveness of the Military Ombuds Office? In the period April 2018 to March 2019, the Office of the Military Ombud had a total caseload of 525. This constitutes 135, which were brought from the previous financial year 2017-2018, and 390 were received during the 2018-2019 financial year, which just ended. A total of 246 cases have been finalized to date from the aforementioned statistics, amounting to approximately 47% of matters finalized. We're discussing with the military ombuds, Lieutenant General Matanzema here, that in order to have an effective oversight ombuds, you need to have a person who understands military. Otherwise, if you rush and put a civilian to be a military ombuds, you are going to face problems because the military command council will close the ranks and you will not have any way to overcome that. So our advice is that it's very important that when you appoint the military ombuds, it must be a person with a military background so that you smooth the relationship with the people who are in defense. In conclusion, it is my hope that the panelists and participants will take further some of the work already being done in entrenching the role of oversight over the armed forces in the African context. I wish to also take this opportunity to wish the country's first military ombuds, General Matanzima, a well-deserved retirement from the service of the defense establishment that he has served diligently for over 40 decades. I thank you and wish you fruitful deliberations and engagements, and that the outcome of this symposium will come with recommendations for further actions. And I thank you.